This is the third and final part of a tutorial showing you how to set up a 2D platformer pathfinding system. This part's going to cover how to pass a path to the character and get that character to travel to the given points. This is going to require that you already have an AStart graph set up and connected, which is covered in the first two parts. Link will be in the description and iCard. With all that out of the way, let's get into it. Okay, so after getting the graph and all the connections put together, we need to be able to create something that allows this to pass a function to the player, or a player to call this function and get a path, which is probably going to be an array. So we're going to do a function find path. It's going to take the start and end points. So right off the bat, we're going to want to get the closest point to the start and the closest point to the end. This is going to be used graph.getClosest. And graph get closest end. So this is going to be var first point, and then var last point. We're then going to want to generate a path from that. Path equals graph.getID path. This is going to return a path of an array of the point IDs. First point, finish, last point. And then if the length of the path is 0, we probably just want to return the path. We're then going to want to take this array of path IDs and turn it into an array of positions and actions. We want the action jump and positions. That's all this character is going to do for now. Okay, so let's go ahead and start creating a character, and that character is going to use this to move around the world. So we're going to go ahead and do a new scene, just character or player, I don't know. We're going to do a kinematic body, 2D. Let's go ahead and rename it player, and we're going to add a collision, shape 2D. And then set it to a square. So add child sprite. Texture is going to be this icon. And then I find for the player, I like the size of 0.2, 0.2. And then we just got to scale this down to match that. So we go ahead and drag the player in here. And we're going to want to give him some scripts. Probably in this one. So right off the bat, we're going to need a couple variables. Speed, jump force, gravity, and that should work for now. Probably movement too. This will be a vector 2, which will decide which way the character is moving. And then also we're going to need to have access to the Pathfinder. So we're going to go variable Pathfinder. We're going to find this Pathfinder just how we found the other one. We're going to go up to the master, then find the node.
Pathfinder.
Make sure we name it the same. Looks good. Okay. And then movement, we're going to initialize it here. So we're going to take this and go move and slide, movement, and then we're going to pass a vector, 0, -1. This is going to point downwards. This is basically just telling you where the ground is, so that if you did is on floor, then it'll tell you whether he's on the floor. If not, is on floor. And then we want gravity to be acting on him. Times delta. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make so when you click, it casts a ray downwards, hits that point, and then it tells that that's the end point. Its start point is going to be the current point. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a Raycaster. I'm going to do it very similar to the way I did it before. Set up a space state, get world 2D dot direct space state. And then if input equals left click is action just pressed, left click. I'm gonna pass for now. I'm actually gonna set up a project input map. I'm gonna go ahead and do a left click, add that one, and I'm gonna add mouse button, left button. So if I click the left button, it should do that. I'm actually just going to print. You clicked. Check, make sure that works. I clicked there, you clicked. Okay, you can tell when I'm left clicking. Okay. It's going to take the mouse position, get global mouse position, and cast array. Now this is going to cast array down just like the other, the result, and then I'm going to go to equals result position. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a current path. I'm going to just initialize a variable right under there, current path. And I'm going to do current path equals Pathfinder dot find path. That's what I called it, right? Find path, yes. And I'm going to pass the start position, which is going to be self.position. And I'm going to pass the mouse position, or the go-to that we just got. And then I'm going to go ahead and initialize a next target. So basically it's going to weaken, it's going to go reach a first target, go to the next point, reach that target, go to the next point. For current target. So I'm going to do a function, next target, and that is going to be called right here. That's just going to set the next target. Okay. In next target, we're just going to go if length of current path equals 0, we just want it to set current target to nothing and then return. Else it's gonna current target equals current path dot pop front. This is gonna grab the first target and remove it from. And then in here, inside the process, we're gonna want it to constantly be trying to get to the current target. So if current target if current target of 0 is greater than position of 0. And then we're going to move to the right of our current speed. Movement of x speed. Else if it's less than, negative speed. And then if it's neither of those, we want the movement to be set to 0 so that it doesn't keep moving when it reaches its target. I click somewhere and he kind of just has a seizure. Now he's actually moving back and forth really quick because he doesn't have any padding. If we were to add a variable, a padding, like let's say 2 or something right here, then he shouldn't be moving around that much. Yeah, when he gets relatively close, he just stops. So let's go ahead and set this into a variable padding. And I actually found that padding of 1 works better, simply because he doesn't go over enough later on. I'm then going to add a second padding, target padding, and that's going to be a bit higher. It's going to be if he gets within this distance of his current target, then he goes on to his next target. I'm going to do if position dot distance to current target is less than finish padding and is on floor. The reason I'm doing is on floor right here is because later on when he's jumping, sometimes he swaps to his next target midair and misses his next jump. Next point, next target. Direction, distance 2, not direction 2. So he does a little better, but he still gets stuck every time he tries to jump up a ledge. And that's actually because the pathfinding never tells him to jump. So we need a way to let the pathfinding, or let him know that the pathfinding wants him to jump there. So instead of just appending all the actions like this, like we did, we're going to go ahead and append a null if he wants to jump. So he's going to check and see if there's a variable in there. If not, he jumps. If yes, then he sets it to his next target. So I found a relatively easy way is to set up something like this, last point. And then you also need the stat because we want to know when to jump. Because the connections don't really tell him, or the connections don't have a way of telling, oh, this is a jump. So we're going to check if a wall's there, or if it's a ledge here. Okay. So this is basically saying, let's start with this side. So this is basically saying if the last position is less than the last position of x is less than the position of x, and the type of 0, which is going to be the left side, is a drop, or it's greater than and the right side is a drop. So basically, if it's greater than, like let's say if it's right here, if it's greater than and the right side is and the left side of the new position is a drop, then it's a ledge like that. And then if it's less than and the right side's a ledge, a drop, and then we're going to jump onto there. So if it's this one or this one, then we're going to jump. We're going to do actions.append null. And then this right here is just making sure it's within the certain distance of our jump height. Because if it's not, then it's just going to be a full-on drop. And we don't want to jump. After that, we're going to then add a last position equals position. So on the player next target, after setting it the current target, we want to check if its current target is equal to null. If it is, we want it to jump, and then set the next target. So the moment it gets to a spot that is going to tell it to jump, we want it to jump and then start going to the next target. And we need a function that lets it jump. This is simply going to be if self.is on floor movement in the y-axis is going to equal negative jump force. And let's see if it could do it yet. And already it's working way better. Now you notice he's actually not going to the point I click. He's going to the closest point. So let's go ahead and fix that by adding the point into his path. So on the Pathfinder, we're going to go ahead and add right here actions.append end, which is going to be the endpoint that they pass it. That way it should go to the endpoint you click instead of the endpoint. And you notice at this point he's kind of doing something weird. He goes in between these points like this. That's actually because it's like the closest point is this point right here, and the closest point is this point right here to the start and end. So he's going to go to those. So we want him to cut those out if he doesn't need to go to them. So basically the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to say if the endpoint is closer, or if the endpoint you gave me is closer than the final point that it's closest to, skip the final point. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the start. So right here, if point equals path of 0, aka we're on the first point, and length, this is just in case it's super small, we don't want to exclude stuff. Variable next close equals graph dot get point position path of 1. Okay, so now we have a point and a next point. If start distance to next point is greater than distance to next point. So basically, if the point they pass us as the start is greater than the distance between that and the next point is greater than the distance between the point and the next point, then we want to append. Now this should get rid of the going to the first point thing that we were seeing before. but he'll still go to the endpoint. So we need to do the same thing with the end. So basically, if point equals the last point in the path, and length of path is greater than 1, and if graph.get point position path of -2, the second to last point, distance to end is less than the point position dot distance to end, and then we want to append. And that should get rid of the going directly to the last point. He should just stop where you click. Thank you for watching this tutorial. Hopefully I was able to help you with understanding and using pathfinding in a 2D play space. If you have any questions or don't understand anything from the video, don't be afraid to reach out and ask.